The German High Command was absolutely certain they were surrounded. Their maps showed an entire Allied armored division, over 15,000 men and hundreds of tanks, poised to strike their most vulnerable flank. Intelligence intercepts confirmed it. Aerial reconnaissance photographed it. Ground patrols heard the unmistakable rumble of heavy machinery echoing through the night. But if a German soldier had walked up to that tree line on the evening of September 14, 1944, and actually touched the weapon aimed at his heart, his hand would have passed right through it. It was made of rubber. The army he feared was a painting. The roar he heard was a phonograph record. And the soldiers threatening his life were not trained killers, but fine art students, fashion designers, and Madison Avenue ad men. This is the true story of the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops, a traveling roadshow of 100 dreamers who saved the world not by taking lives, but by painting them. The problem was born in the smoking wreckage of North Africa. By 1943, Allied commanders faced a brutal reality. Every time they massed troops for a major offensive, the Germans seemed to know exactly where and when. The difference between victory and slaughter was the element of surprise, and the Allies had lost it. Watching troop movements in the desert was relatively simple for enemy spotter planes, but anticipating where the next hammer blow would fall required deceiving not just the eyes of the Wehrmacht, but the mind of its general staff. The British had pioneered tactical deception in the sands of El Alamein, as using dummy pipelines and canvas trucks to fool Erwin Rommel. But the American plan would be infinitely more audacious. They didn't just want to hide a few vehicles. They wanted to conjure entire phantom armies out of thin air. Armies so convincing that the enemy would stake the outcome of the war on their existence. The architect of this invisible weapon was Colonel Billy Harris, a man with a distinctly unmilitary pedigree. He wasn't a cavalry officer or an artillery expert. He was an impresario who understood that modern warfare was a psychological drama. In January 1944, Harris activated the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops at Camp Pine, New York. He didn't recruit standard infantrymen. He scoured the ranks for creative saboteurs. He stole fashion designer Bill Blass away from a desk job so he could sew counterfeit unit patches. He drafted abstract painter Ellsworth Kelly to analyze shadows under camouflage nets. He poached a sound engineer from the recording industry who had spent his civilian life capturing symphonies. Now, his assignment was to bottle the specific, terrifying sound of a Sherman tank crushing a tree. Photographer Art Kane joined the ranks, alongside future wildlife illustrator Arthur Singer and a young private named Jack Macy, who would one day design the iconic American pavilion at the Moscow World's Fair. These were not warriors in the traditional sense. They were cultural assassins armed with paintbrushes and microphones. Their basic instrument of war was a logistical miracle of compressed rubber and burlap. The M4 Sherman tank, a 30-ton steel beast, was replicated as an inflatable cushion that could be carried in the back of a Jeep. Engineers from the U.S. Rubber Company designed the dummies to be inflated with a portable compressor in under 20 minutes. From the air, they were indistinguishable from the real thing. The silhouette, the gun barrel length, even the heat signature captured on primitive infrared film all passed muster. But an army doesn't just look real, it behaves real. A static inflatable is just a balloon. The Ghost Army's canvas convoy required the illusion of life. They welded steel hoops onto jeeps to create two-man saddles, allowing a driver and a passenger to ride the vehicle while dragging a heavy metal chain behind the rear axle. As they crisscrossed the muddy fields of France, these chains churned up the earth, creating the distinctive wide tread marks of a heavy tank column. It was a ballet of physics, a carefully choreographed track dance designed to imprint a lie onto the soil itself. While half the unit sculpted the landscape with rubber and steel chains, the signal company was painting the airwaves with false conversation. The German intelligence apparatus, the Abwehr, relied heavily on radio triangulation and traffic analysis. They knew that a corps headquarters generated a specific density of chatter. The clipped orders of command, the mundane requests for fuel rations, the arrogant banter of operators who thought no one was listening. The 603rd Signal Company was staffed with some of the fastest Morse code operators in the U.S. military, men who were pulled from conventional units precisely because they were too good. Their talent was now a liability for the enemy. These operators would role-play entire divisions, mimicking the specific fist or tapping style of a fake battalion commander. If a certain operator was known to drag his dots slightly when he was tired, the Americans would replicate that flaw. They simulated the chaos of a headquarters relocating by gradually fading out one signal and bringing up another miles away, creating a seamless radio migration that perfectly mirrored the movement of a heavy armored force that did not exist. But the true masterpiece of deception was the spoof, a radical new weapon designed by the sonic engineers of the 3102nd Signal Service Company. Working at Fort Knox, they crawled over tanks and trucks with state-of-the-art wire recorders, capturing the terrible symphony of a mechanized army on the move. They recorded the squeal of tank treads gripping pavement, the guttural downshift of a half-track climbing a hill, and even the echoing curses of drivers and the clanking of bridge treads. They mixed these sounds into 15-minute soundscapes of pure military intimidation. To project this acoustic illusion across the front line, they mounted massive speakers capable of generating sound over 130 decibels onto armored half-tracks. A single sonic truck, driving just a mile from the German positions under the cover of darkness, could blanket an entire valley with the unmistakable sound of a regiment assembling for a dawn attack. It was a physical force. The sound waves shook the leaves on the trees. It rattled the bones of German sentries in their foxholes. It was so real that one Ghost Army operator recalled seeing terrified deer fleeing the phantom convoy as if being chased by a steel avalanche. Their baptism of fire came just weeks after the D-Day landings, and it nearly died in its crib. In July 1944, the unit was rushed to Normandy to impersonate the 2nd Armored Division near the strategic city of St. Lo. They were children playing in a very real storm. The commanding officer, Colonel Harry Reeder, understood that a visual deception without kinetic activity would be quickly unmasked. He ordered his men to drive their trucks into the open during an artillery lull and inflate the tanks in full view of any hidden German observers. As they worked the foot pumps, panic set in. A German mortar crew spotted the movement and walked a series of rounds directly into the middle of the bogus formation. The concussions flipped the rubber tanks into the air like grotesque carnival toys. As the smoke cleared, the artists didn't run for the ditches. They scrambled back to the canvas, patching the holes with brushes and liquid rubber, literally painting their army back to life. It was a profound moment of lunatic courage. They risked their lives not to destroy an enemy, but to preserve a fiction. The patched seams held, and the German intelligence maps continued to mark a heavy American armored presence directly opposite them. The complexity of the theater escalated as the Allies broke out of the hedgerows and raced toward the German border. On September 14, 1944, the 23rd faced its most critical performance. The real 6th Armored Division was needed to punch a hole in the line far to the south, but if the Germans detected their withdrawal, the entire sector would collapse. The Ghost Army was ordered to fill the void of 16 kilometers of front line. This was Operation Bettenburg. For 7 sleepless days, 1,100 men personated a force of 15,000. They drove their sonic trucks in endless grinding loops through the thickets, playing the assembly of armor tape on a loop. The radio operators generated a blizzard of fake signals regarding fuel shortages, map coordinates, and patrol schedules. The artists, now masters of scale, placed a string of inflatable tanks at carefully staggered intervals to suggest a depth of armor that didn't exist. To add the final touch of authenticity, they sewed the distinctive shoulder patches of the 6th Armored Division onto their own uniforms and flooded the local taverns in the rear areas. Over cheap French wine, They loudly complained to the civilian population, who they knew were crawling with informants, about the terrible losses their division had taken and the big push they were dreading at dawn. The disinformation worked perfectly. The German 7th Army kept its panzer reserves locked in place, waiting for an attack that was never coming. The winter of 1944 brought the war to a frozen standstill, and the Ghost Army's mission shifted from mobile lying to strategic impersonation when the Germans launched their desperate counteroffensive through the Ardennes forest in December, the Battle of the Bulge. The 23rd was caught in the chaos of a collapsing front. But even in retreat, their skills were weaponized. They were ordered to establish a fake radio network suggesting that a massive reinforcement column was racing south from Liège to seal off the German spearhead. As real GIs bled in the snow holding bastonniers, the artists and engineers of the 23rd created an electronic ghost wall that confused the German timetable. By the time the skies cleared and the Allies counterattacked, the Ghost Army had shifted from defense to a masterwork of aggressive fiction. In March 1945, the crossing of the Rhine River was the final barrier to the heart of the Reich. The U.S. 9th Army prepared to cross at the heavily industrialized Ruhr region, but the assault would be a suicide mission if the German defenders were fully alert. Operation Viersen was the Ghost Army's magnum opus, a Hollywood production staged in a live fire zone. Their task was to simulate the entire 30th and 79th Infantry Divisions, two battle-hardened heavy formations. The numbers were staggering. They deployed over 600 inflatable vehicles. The canvas shops worked around the clock, creating not just tanks, but kitchen trucks, artillery pieces, and observation aircraft. During the night of March 23, 1945, the Sonic teams crawled to the riverbank and opened the D-Day Library, a collection of sounds designed to simulate the chaos of an amphibious landing. They played the crashing of landing craft ramps, the splashing of men wading through water, and the sharp commands of engineers blowing river obstacles. At the same time, the radio deception teams simulated the network traffic of a massive headquarters coordinating a river assault. The German response was immediate and catastrophic for them. Artillery batteries that should have been zeroed in on the actual crossing site 20 miles to the north instead pounded the empty fields around the decoys. The 9th Army crossed the Rhine with historically low casualties, breaching Germany's last natural defense line because the enemy was fighting an army made of air. The human cost of this illusion is the most overlooked aspect of the story. Deception duty was a psychological meat grinder. Carrying an inflatable rubber object offers zero ballistic protection. The men were equipped with rifles and machine guns, but their vehicles were not armored. If a German patrol stumbled upon their position, the artists had orders to drop the props and fight as light infantry. They lived in a constant state of nerve-shredding anxiety, knowing that their greatest weapon was also their greatest vulnerability. The stress of maintaining a lie for weeks on end fractured nerve. The Sonic crews suffered permanent hearing loss from the massive speakers they strapped to their heads. They were not given the luxury of a front or a rear. They existed in the uncanny valley of the line, sometimes advancing so far forward on purpose to sell a lie that they were actually behind the first wave of German outposts. This was a unit that literally had to deceive the enemy to survive, and they did it with a box of poster paints and a reel of steel wire. The ultimate test arrived in the final weeks of the war as the Allies raced to seal off the Ruhr pocket, trapping 300,000 German soldiers. The Ghost Army was attached to simulate a gap closure, projecting an image of overwhelming force on a thin line of tree breaks. The German commander, Field Marshal Walter Model, stared at his situation maps and saw no escape route where one actually existed. The ghost tanks were sitting right on his most logical path of retreat. Fearing annihilation by a force that was nothing more than a sketch, Model dissolved Army Group B and committed walking into the woods near Duisburg on April 20, 1945. A rubber tank had helped destroy the will of one of Hitler's most fanatical field marshals. When the guns fell silent in May 1945, the men of the 23rd were sworn to a secrecy that would last longer than the war itself. The technology of tactical deception was deemed too valuable to expose to the future Soviet threat. For 40 years, fathers and husbands returned to their studios and ad agencies, their hair grayer, their hearing damaged, unable to tell anyone what they had actually done. Bill Blass became the titan of American fashion, his elegant minimalism shaped by the brutal efficiency of wartime fakery. Ellsworth Kelly defined hard-edge painting, his canvases reflecting the sharp, absolute lines of a tank silhouette cut against a gray European sky. They carried the silent knowledge that they had saved the lives of an estimated 15,000 to 30,000 of their fellow soldiers, not with a bullet, but with a brushstroke. The 23rd Headquarters Special Troops were never awarded the medals for gallantry that many of them deserved during their lifetimes, because the battle they fought was invisible. They proved that the mind is the deadliest battlefield, and that a lie, wielded with courage and genius, can conquer steel. Their secret was their sacrifice, and for decades, the silence that protected a nation also hid its greatest artists. The inflation of a rubber tank was the detonation of a weapon that maimed nothing but a map, and in a conflict defined by absolute destruction, these 100 men saved the world with the one thing the war tried to take from everyone: imagination.